Big match here. Winner gets to play against Kevin Thanikett to be the Invitational Champion and to punch one last ticket to the Players' Championship here in Season 1.
You're really trying to do it to me, right?
What's that?
Got Thanikett trying to get to the Players' Championship.
Once again, you can't help yourself.
It's been a long couple days.
That's true.
My barrier to entry as far as what I'm allowed to say out loud on camera is a lot lower than normal. Looks like Dan Jessup here looking at a 6-card hand. Doesn't look super happy with it. Going to go down to 5 here. Looking for a better one. Now, these games do go pretty long, so as long as he has like an Explore creature or two in the opening hand, he might be able to recoup those lost cards with those Explore creatures thanks to getting those lands.
They definitely help a lot there. And the value generated once you get to the point in the game where you resolve Command the Dread Horde, that comes up, gets you a lot back. It does cost 6, though. It's tough to get there starting from a low resource point.
Right, but that's why you playing Jadelight Ranger and Merfolk Branchwalker. These cards that just kind of help bridge the gap, while also being an integral part of keeping your life total high for that Command the Dread Horde once you do resolve it.
You see Collin Roundtree, the 5th seed, on the bottom half of the top 8, but his opponent, Danny Jessup, the 8th, so Roundtree will be on the play.
Now, last match, we had Danny Jessup actually facing off what he and his brother Andy thought was his worst matchup. Evan Buchholz playing that white aggressive strategy, but he got a freebie game where Buchholz mulled to 5 and kept a no-lander and didn't play a land for the entire game. He basically kind of stole one of the pre-sideboarded games as well with a bit of a stumble from Buchholz. And honestly, Buchholz just mulliganed every single game except for one and mulliganed to 5 multiple times. Ultimately, Danny able to scrape by in that matchup he thought was going to be pretty tough here. And let's see if Danny can turn the tables in this matchup against this Esper Superheroes deck on his mull to 5.
Right, yeah, this time he is the player on the mulligan. Now for the Esper Superheroes side of things, now the Esper deck, you have your Hero Precinct 1 draws, you have your Planeswalker draws. Obviously both is great, but which side of the deck do you think matters more here, the Hero or the Planeswalkers?
Honestly, it's always a combination of the two no matter what deck you're playing against, because Hero Precinct 1 punishes your opponent for not having a removal spell in their draw, but also if they don't have the removal spell, like you just get to attack their Planeswalkers as well. And with War of the Spark, almost every single deck in the format has some sort of Planeswalker synergy going on. I would say overall, though, the Hero Precinct 1s matter a bit less in this particular matchup because all they really do is help you block the large creatures like Wild Growth Walker.
Well, great start for Roundtree. He had 2 heroes. One knocked Jessup to 18. The second was met by a cast down. Jessup now falling to 16 off another attack, and there's a 3rd Hero Precinct 1. No tokens made just yet, though.
Yeah, no tokens made yet. Not a huge impact, just a couple of Grizzly Bears here for Roundtree. Jessup understanding, though, that multiple copies of Hero Precinct 1 can get out of control, so using that cast down there. Also understanding that there aren't a ton of targets for cast down in the matchup, so want to go ahead and burn those early and often.
Mana shaping up well for both players. Both have made their first 4 land drops, have all 3 other colors. Jessup shocking to 14th for his fourth mana source, Breeding Pool.
Jessup here contemplating between a 2/2 Hydro Crisis to trade with a hero, or perhaps playing a Tamiyo Collector of Tales and ticking up or down. I like the Tamiyo tick up, starts to fill up the graveyard, and then it becomes pretty difficult for Roundtree to actually kill it outside of playing something like a Teferi Hero of Dominaria on the following turn.
What are you looking for if you up the Tamiyo?
I don't know. I don't think it matters too much, but it turns out that doesn't matter at all because he's looking for that cast down to check the Hero Precinct 1s immediately.
Roundtree basically flips his Hallowed Fountain off the top of his deck. Here's Teferi Hero of Dominaria. 2 tokens coming in off those heroes. Pretty huge swing, very ahead on the table now. Hero will take down Tamiyo, and 2 more points going to Jessup. He's at 12.
Roundtree playing with a bit of flair here. Needed that 5th land off the top, found it, and shows exactly what his Esper Superhero deck can do once it hits that pivotal 5th mana.
And we'll see what Jessup can do about it. Remember, he was on a 5-card hand, pretty far behind on the table. He'll start his turn with Wild Growth Walker. There's the cast down he picked up, takes care of one of the heroes. And back to Roundtree. Draws for turn. Teferi up to 6. Draw a card. And here's a Narset.
The draw ability of, or the anti-draw ability of Narset is not a huge factor in this matchup. Other than Hydroid Crisis, it doesn't shut that much down, but the big draw of it is that minus effect where you continually dig for more and more action. Here, Roundtree just super far ahead with Jessup's mulligan to 5 and kind of just drawing a mishmash of removal and not even enough removal to deal with all 3 copies of Hero Precinct 1.
So the Narset found a Thought Erasure, however. Roundtree had bigger plans. Oath of Kaya takes down the Wild Growth Walker and attack for 4. Jessup to 12. Back on Jessup's side, here's a Nissa who shakes the world. But is it too little too late?
Yeah, I think it is a bit too little too late. He's going to be able to make a 3/3, and he's going to attack probably the Narset, but if he does, it's going to deal him 2 damage from the Oath of Kaya. A chump block from Roundtree can actually protect the Narset as well, because they do have Vigilance, but they do not have Trample.
So Jessup to 6 off of that Oath of Kaya trigger. Roundtree to 21. Token soaks up the attack. Go back to Roundtree. Narset to 1. Looks at the top 4. Finds a Teferi Time Raveler.
That's going to be it.
Jessup has seen enough.
Yeah, that Time Raveler threatening to bounce the land, clearing the way for a check completely of the life total or the Nissa who shakes the world, whichever he chooses.
So Collin Roundtree up a game. This is a best of 5 set, so there'll be one more pre-board game that the players will play. This time Dan Jessup will be on the play before we go to sideboards.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about the top 8 here at the Star City Games Season 1 Invitational and all the Invitationals is that we do best of 5 in the top 8. So if you have a mold of 5 or a bad draw, that can be mitigated by the fact that you're just playing more raw number of total games. Now, even though Dan Jessup down a game here, still has 4 potentially left. Hopefully he can win 3 of the next 4.
You see our players in the feature match area in their Carnox gaming chairs. You see us up in the booth of them as well. These are way more comfortable than the chairs that we are used to sitting in for these events.
It's actually criminal, right? Because I think it's an unfair advantage for the players in the feature match area because they get to sit on these chairs and everyone else has to sit on those like convention center chairs that are like, occasionally one of the feet are missing and it wobbles.
Yeah.
The back is like too far bent and it like leans back.
Your play mat is on the break in 2 tables.
Yeah, if you don't want that for yourself, make sure to head over to carnox.com/SCG. You can pick up one of these sweet gaming chairs today.
I'm very likely to purchase one of these for myself.
Yeah, we talked about it when we were in the quarterfinals, and again, I am probably just going to secretly take one tonight when everyone is busy closing down SCGCon.
Smart.
Look, they got wheels. It's pretty easy to get out of here.
Yeah. I used to be happy about even the off-camera feature matches just because you get more elbow room. But the chair is a big upside for sure.
Yeah, I've talked to a few of the players in the feature match area. They quite like the chairs as well, and I don't blame them. Now, we've actually taken off a few of the shoulder rests or head rests or whatever, a few of the lumbar support pads. These lean back pretty far, and they actually come with those 2 pads too, so you get some nice support if you want to lean back and while you're watching some TV or
I put in some extensive testing. Yes, on day 1 I caught a quick nap.
Fell asleep immediately. Matthias Sound was in one earlier today, leaned back a little bit. He's just like, I don't know why these pillows are here. I said, lean back. He did, and he goes, oh, my. That's a true story.
We are underway in game number 2. Tap duels for both players, Breeding Pool versus Hollowed Fountain. Turn 2 for Dan Jessup, Drowned Catacomb, Merfolk Branchwalker. Looks like a Command the Dreadhorde going to the graveyard.
Yeah, that's usually a signal that Dan just needs some lands. Normally you want to be putting permanents into the graveyard for Command the Dreadhorde to return later on.
Roundtree checking the right boxes again. Turn 2, Hero Precinct 1 off a Drowned Catacomb. Jessup catches that with a cast down, though. Attack for 3, Roundtree to 17.
A little bit of frustration, though. You can see him kind of flip his Branchwalker sideways. He's missing his 3rd land drop. And here again, it's just having some mana woes, and he's struggling quite a bit.
Roundtree will make his. Another Catacomb. Narset will be cast, though no activation, as the Branch Walker will just take it down. Jessup can only attack it to 2 and pass back. No land again.
Pretty interesting spot for Roundtree. The static effect of Narset here, pretty decent against something like Hydroid Krasis, but Dan is kind of stuck on mana. And yeah, he goes and cashes in here. That makes a lot of sense.
So the turn started with Basilica Bellhaunt. Jessup discards a card. Roundtree to 23. Now he will, just back to 20. And now he will cash in the Narset and finds another Narset.
And we keep seeing that. These Narsets dig for more copies of Narset. Functions pretty similarly to a card we've seen banned in the past and Dig Through Time. First it finds another Planeswalker or removal spell or something like that. And then the second one usually finds another Narset.
So Jessup found land number 3. He'll shock for an Overgrown Tomb to 18, cast Jadelight Ranger, and puts Jadelight Ranger cast down in the graveyard off that Explorer, still looking for more mana.
Yeah, he would have loved to have had that cast down if he had access to more mana, just so he can clear out the Bellhaunt and start attacking for larger chunks of damage. Here, though, it looks like he's just kind of getting eaten alive by these Basilica Bellhaunts. Normally, they're not hugely impactful, but with Dan missing land drops and not drawing extra cards off of these Explore creatures, the discard's actually pretty effective.
So second Bellhaunt here, round to 23. Jessup will discard again, and these 3/4s holding the ground pretty well.
Oh, for sure. The Branchwalkers look pretty bad in their face.
If you're Roundtree, are you interested in attacking? Well, I guess he's not, so that answers that question. Watery Grave, go.
Yeah, I think Roundtree has no interest in closing the game that quickly, just because it would take a little while, and the Sultai Dreadhorde deck's actually pretty good at gaining life if you give them enough time. So you want to kind of get them on every front. You want to make sure that you have like more of an established battlefield, more Planeswalkers, and you want to keep your life total pretty high so they can't swing through those Explore creatures.
More bad news for Danny Jessup. Another Jadelight Ranger explores 2 spells to the graveyard. No land drop again.
I think 6 mana means a Command the Dreadhorde from Collin Roundtree, and we might have a really quick match on our hand here, folks. This Command the Dreadhorde is going to be returning at least Nissa, Who Shakes the World, Tamio, Collector of Tales that can minus and get back said Command the Dreadhorde, and a number of other Explore creatures that have been put into the bin already.
There's a Branch Walker and a Jadelight Ranger. He's got his own Narset. A lot of stuff to choose from. Yeah, Jessup's the one that's supposed to be commanding the Dreadhorde.
Right, that's kind of the namesake card of the deck, but this is the second time I've seen the Esper Superhero Friends cast Command the Dreadhorde to great effect, and it's obviously one of the strongest cards in the matchup, as you can see here, from both sides.
Right, looking at 4 permanents, the Hero, Merfolk Branchwalker, Nissa Who Shakes the World, Tamio, so that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
And this is another reason why he didn't want to attack, because he wanted to keep his life total high, so he could get that Command the Dreadhorde and do some serious work with it.
So Roundtree to 8 off the resolution. He will explore a Teferi Hero of Dominaria to the top.
And he will plus the Tamio and name Teferi Hero of Dominaria, since it's kind of a freebie.
Yep. Puts that one into the hand. 1 attack from a Bellhaunt.
Kind of like this attack. Would have liked Nissa, Who Shakes the World, to untap a land and also attack, if we're going to make that one there.
Jessup takes the trade with one of his Jadelight Rangers. Now post-combat, you see Roundtree untapping a land to make it into a 3/3 with the Nissa. It's going to be an isolated Chapel, and he'll pass to Jessup.
And even though he's at 8 life, he has a pretty stout defense against the ragtag group of creatures from Jessup. But I think the real story of this game is that Jessup has just never really gotten much going. These creatures haven't hit any lands off the top. He stumbled on 2 lands for quite some time, and he's going to pack them in already. That's 2-0 for Collin Roundtree as we head here to sideboards.
And so both pre-board games in the books. Roundtree wins both of those. Just has to win 1 more, and we will be seeing him in the finals. So we do actually have an interview with Collin Roundtree. Matthias talked to him earlier on the floor, so we're going to get some insights from Collin Roundtree himself on how he's going to sideboard in this matchup.
All right, hello from the Invitational. I'm here with Collin Roundtree of Pat's Games, top 4 competitor here. Now, you are playing Esper Superheroes in the event. It's actually the same matchup as the other semi-final going on. I assume this is a matchup you played a lot over the weekend.
Yes, I've played it a lot. Not really in the tournament, but my friend I came with is playing Soulside Dreadhorde, and we've just been playing a ton in between rounds, so it's a pretty interesting matchup. Mostly it's about Tamiyo, which my opponent in the semifinals has 4 of, Dan. And so I think mostly a lot to look out for is that if there's a Tamiyo in play, I'm probably pretty far behind.
Okay, so we got a chance to talk to Jonathan Hobbs, who's playing the same deck in this matchup. Now, he registered a lot of counter spells on the sideboard for this matchup. I saw in your plan you actually don't have any counter spells in your deck.
Yeah, I just don't have counter spells because I don't think they're good in the Esper mirror. Like, you don't want them against the Teferis. It's definitely a disadvantage not to have as many counter spells against Dreadhorde because it is one of the key cards. It's just all the Dreadhordes. So post-board, it's really important to have my own Dreadhordes as well to try to counter his. Getting all his dudes back first is pretty important, as well as, like, I really rely on the Duresses to try to take the key cards as well.
All right, so your plan is you can duress his command the Dreadhordes, you can command him first. I know your sideboard has a ton of removal in it, things like Ixalan's Binding, Kaya's Wrath. Now, I know his creatures do come out of the graveyard, but is any of that going to be something you'll look to for these last games?
So I think that on the draw, I have to bring in the Wraths for sure. I'm going to have to feel out whether or not he leaves in 4-mana Vraska on whether or not I want Hero. So it's important to look for, like, if it goes to game 5, I haven't seen Vraska at all, and I'm on the play, I might just jam the heroes on the play and try to ride them to victory.
So the plan is to board the heroes out unless you start seeing no Vraskas, and then maybe you might get aggressive again?
Exactly. I think he's probably going to have Assassin's Trophies for sure, but there's only 2 of those in the deck, and I'm going to shave a bunch of spot removal if I bring in the Wraths. So if the Wraths are in, I'm not going to have as much spot removal, but if the heroes are in, I'm going to have them still in.
All right, so this is going to be kind of fun. You're going to feel it out and might change the board plans as the match goes on.
Exactly. The sampler special.
All right, love it. Well, wishing you the best of luck in these post-board games. Let's head back to the match.
All right, so there's some good insights on how Roundtree is approaching the matchup from the man himself. Now, the player who needs the help from the sideboard, talking about the player that's down 0-2 right now, needs to rattle off 3 in a row, Danny Jessup. So his sideboard, look at what he might have to help him. The full list, we have 2 Ob Nixilis Cruelty, copy of Vraska Golgari Queen, 3 Thrashing Brontodon, 2 Elder Spells, another Cast Down, 3 Negate, and 3 Duress. What do you think he's going to do to try to fit right the ship here?
I think a lot of these anti-Planeswalker cards are going to be useful. The Elder Spell, namely, is a big one, but I also like the Negates and the Duresses. Negate can be a little problematic if your opponent has a Time Raveler on the battlefield because it does lock out counter spells. But, you know, I definitely want these ways to interact with those powerful Planeswalkers early on. The problem is, you know, early in the game, they're not going to be super good because you want to tap out for things like Jade Light Ranger, Branch Walker, to help you hit your land drops. They're going to be more so to lock out the game once you're ahead, to stop Hero of Dominaria from entering the battlefield, or perhaps an opposing command, the Dreadhorde. Aside from that, I don't think you want a bunch more spot removal. Roundtree has only 8 creatures in his deck, the Basilica Bahamts and the Heroes, and he has quite a few in the main deck already with the 2 Cast Downs and the 2 Assassin's Trophies. I would look to kind of stay the course for the most part. He just had 2 pretty unfortunate draws. It'll be interesting to see if Roundtree's sideboard plan of Kaya's Wrath ends up working out. I know we saw Hobbs actually die with a Kaya's Wrath in hand in one of the games in the previous semifinal match. I wonder if he watched and learned anything.
There was a situation where he was hit by a Duress, and one of the cards was Kaya's Wrath, and it was just very clearly not the choice with the Duress.
Right, and I think that that's mostly due to the duality of the, well, both decks, honestly, but mostly the Soulside Dreadhorde deck. You know, you have Wild Growth, Jade Light, Branch Walker, maybe another creature or 2 like Llanowar Elves or Hydroid Krasis, and sometimes Kaya's Wrath is quite good. Other times, you're just getting absolutely obliterated by Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, or another Planeswalker, and it does nothing.
All right, so tap plans for both players on turn 1. Turn 2, Dan Jessup. It's around Catacomb. Roundtree throws his hand under the table. We see 2 Duresses, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, I believe Kaya's Wrath and Oath of Kaya, plus 2 Hallowed Fountains.
Yeah, sounds about right. Roundtree here choosing not to take damage in case his life total becomes jeopardized in a few turns. Going to look to cast Duress over the next few turns, maybe strip Jessup of a few of those key Planeswalkers or even a Command the Dreadhorde.
Attention,
interesting element of how you approach this hand with your duress is that currently Roundtree would be unable to double duress on the following turn.
Right, so taking a duress doesn't really slow him down all that much. A lot of times with your discard spells, you're either looking for something unique to take, a sweeper effect, a planeswalker with no other, or, you know, definitely not something that they have a redundant copy of. With that said, if you have something like 2 copies of Tamiyo Collector of Tales in your hand, it might behoove you to actually take one of the duresses so that the duress from Roundtree can't strip you of your ability to play your own powerful planeswalker.
So he took the Teferi. That's definitely the most powerful card. We go over to Roundtree. He'll fire off one of those duresses.
Quite a ways off from casting the Hero of Dominaria, but Danny Jessup looking 4 turns later into the late game to see just kind of where it's going to be navigated toward.
All right, so a duress from Roundtree. We see Nissa, Vraska, Krasis, Hinterland Harbor, Breeding Pool, Nissa down. Hallowed Fountain tapped. Go back to Jessup.
I actually quite disagree with that duress here, but Roundtree probably has other plans, and this is exactly why, because a duress here from Jessup is going to take the duress from Roundtree, and now that Tamiyo can come down as early as next turn. Oh, no, sorry, was that a Vraska? I'm a dumb. Never mind. In my head, it was a Tamiyo, not a Vraska.
All right. Duress your duress. We see the pickup for Roundtree was Plains. Breeding Pool tapped. We'll see what Roundtree can do from here.
It's not the first time I've been wrong this weekend, and it certainly won't be the last, as there is a karaoke party tonight.
I hope you're wrong at least several more times today.
Yes.
Right, Hinterland Harbor for Jessup. He's going to cast that Vraska up to 6. No sacrifice.
Yeah.
Back to Roundtree.
Not really in a spot where he can afford to sacrifice these lands. Wants to hit a few more, but he can perhaps get that Vraska up to ultimate status, and then every single creature he plays from then on is lethal.
All right, Roundtree is going to show the card that he drew. Plays Godless Shrine tapped. Go back to Jessup. Jadelight Ranger. Negate on the top. How do you feel about that one?
Negate's a great hit because he has a land in hand, so what he can do is leave it on top twice, creating this 4/3. Play his land, shock, use the Vraska plus, sack a land and draw a card, and then he has Negate at the ready for a potential Planeswalker or big removal spell next turn.
Given the Hydroid Krasis in hand, do you expect him to sacrifice the land?
I mean, it is a bit dangerous. Since there are 2 removal spells in Roundtree's hand, there's a chance he actually just sacrifices the Jaylet Ranger, but he actually chooses neither.
Yeah, he puts the Negate in the graveyard and draws Hinterland Harbor.
Very interesting decision from Dan, you know, and that makes sense. With Krasis, every land just matters more and more.
So play Watery Grave tapped, puts the Vraska up to 8, no sacrifices again, passes the turn to Roundtree.
Narset Parter Veils is a draw, but I think we're looking here for Teferi here of Dominaria, and this one gonna go up, ticking the draw card.
Yeah, plays that Plains that the players knew about, up, untap 2 lands, back to Jessup. The Vraska is getting very close to ultimate.
Yeah, it's gonna tick up to 10 this turn, and the next turn it can ultimate. And that Jaylet Ranger then becomes a significant threat. The problem here is that Dan can't take care of the Teferi here of Dominaria just yet. And if he plays another creature, it's just going to get hit with that Kaya's Wrath. That's kind of why I was a fan of holding on to that Negate. Even if you aren't going to draw at that turn, at least maybe leave it on top so that on the following turn you have the ability to maybe protect yourself from a Planeswalker or a Sweeper effect.
Jessup in the tank right now, trying to decide what he wants to do about this Teferi. Also has a decision point. Does he want to use the Vraska to try to find some help, draw a card, or push it towards the ultimate? He'll start with the Jadelight Ranger.
That is a nice one. A nice hit here. It doesn't have second black for it to use it this turn, but can potentially do it next turn. I think you want to leave this on top twice. Tick up the Vraska to 10, but don't activate, or don't sacrifice. You definitely want that answer to that Teferi.
He's looking long and hard at this Elder spell with the Explorer. You gotta wonder what Roundtree would have to answer back.
Oh, he's actually just super tilted right now. I just figured it out. Because if he had left open a second black here, he could have drawn it immediately, killed the Teferi, sent Vraska to 10, ultimate attack for the win. He knows almost the entire hand of Roundtree. It would have been lethal.
Yikes. So he keeps it on top, but yeah, you're right. And, yeah, Hinterland Harbor the land in hand as well.
Now, I think the question now becomes, do you attack the Teferi? And I think he does, because that actually keeps him from being able to tuck the Vraska and get rid of that for free. So if you cast the Kaya's Wrath, he actually can't Oath of Kaya the Vraska to keep it from going ultimate.
All right, so Jade Light Ranger knocks Teferi down to 2. Vraska up to 10. No sacrifice. Jessup passes. All right, both players know about an Oath of Kaya and a Kaya's Wrath in Roundtree's hand. Starts his turn by plussing the Teferi. Looks like there's another Hero of Dominaria in hand and a Narset Parter of Veils as options.
Yeah, doesn't have a lot of choices here. Can basically only play the Kaya's Wrath, or he can play... Whoa.
So he's going to play the other Teferi and tuck away the Vraska.
That ultimate status on the Planeswalker does make any future creature that Dan play a lethal attacker. So Roundtree here choosing to go ahead and use that Hero of Dominaria to get it off the battlefield before it can ultimate.
And he played Hallowed Fountain untapped 2 lands, so now he has 2 mana up as we go to Jessup's turn. Draws that Elder Spell.
Now he's still a little vulnerable here to that Kaya's Wrath. He can't really deploy the Krasis unless he wants to get it caught up in the sweeper. I would here just look for Danny to send 1 creature at the Teferi, 1 creature upstairs. If Roundtree has something like Tyrant Scorn, then you just use the Elder Spell. But you need to start getting in some actual damage and force Roundtree to cast that Kaya's Wrath on these 2 Jade Light Rangers.
He's thinking about whether he wants to send both creatures at the Teferi, perhaps, to make sure he gets it, but he will go at the split. Smaller Jade Light at the Teferi, 4 damage pointed at Roundtree. Teferi down, Roundtree to 16.
Now this might start to slowly slip away from Danny, because once Roundtree untaps, he's going to get to play Narset and Kaya's Oath of Kaya if he so chooses, or he's going to get to play Narset plus Kaya's Wrath and clean up these 2 creatures.
So he passes here. We go to Roundtree. Starts his turn with Narset Parter of Veils. That goes to 3. Finds a backup Narset. Interesting question for Jessup's side of things. We've known about this Hinterland Harbor in hand for a while. He's maintaining that. You suppose it's just because of Basilica Bellhaunt?
Perhaps wants to protect that Hydroid Krasis in hand. Normally when you do play stuff like Hydroid Krasis, you want to play all your lands out basically every single turn. Now that is a heck of a draw.
So Kaya's Wrath 1 off. Now we go to Jessup's turn. What was the draw?
Oh, you'll see.
Tamiyo, Collector of Tales.
Tamiyo, Collector of Tales is the draw. Now, Dan has a couple of options here. He can go Tamiyo minus Duress, Tamiyo minus Hold Up Negate. He can play Tamiyo plus to dig for Command the Dreadhorde. Minus to get Nissa, who shakes the world. A lot of stuff going on. Definitely not going to cast the Elder Spell because he knows that there's another Narset, a backup Narset from Collin Roundtree right now. So it looks like he's going to play it and tick up.
And now he does play the Hinterland Harbor, so looks at 4 cards.
Vraska Golgari Queen. What a master. Finds it immediately. Oh, he knew it was on top. Never mind. He's just a normal guy.
Takes the guaranteed card there. Now uses the Elder Spell in the Narset. Tamiyo up to 8 loyalty.
So you get up to 8. Seems reasonable. Not the hugest fan, though, because you do know the second Narset is in Roundtree's hand, so you're effectively trading an Elder Spell for one of the top 4 cards of Collin Roundtree's deck, as well as a couple of points of loyalty on your Tamiyo. But Tamiyo Collector Tales doesn't actually have an ultimate status. You kind of want to save Elder Spell for something like your Vraska Golgari Queen that you have in hand. But that's an even better top deck.
Roundtree, once again, will choose to be the commander of the Dreadhorde.
This is bad news for Danny. He's playing the Command the Dreadhorde deck, and it's been all Collin Roundtree this match so far, casting said Command the Dreadhorde.
From 16 life, he'll be able to get back a couple of nice ones. Looking at a Tamiyo of his own and a Nissa to start things off.
Well, those are 100% coming back, and then he's also probably bringing back a Hero of Dominaria, but he has at 16. So you got to make sure that you're not like dealing yourself too much damage.
He's looking at the Narset as the 3rd card, so that's where he's going to go. Nissa, Tamiyo,
Okay.
Narset,
Okay.
5, 4, 3. So that's 12. He'll go to 4.
pretty interesting. He's valuing the Nissa Who Shakes the World more than a Hero of Dominaria, but he has that Tamio to get back a Hero of Dominaria if he wants. Can also get back Duress.
And he gets a lot of looks at whatever spell he might want here. He'll start by plussing the Tamio.
Didn't hit.
3 lands and a Thought Erasure. Those will go to the graveyard. Named D-Spark. That makes sense. That would clear the Tamio. He'll now use the Narset to look at 4 more cards.
And Thought Erasure here, a bit of a brick because of Tamio's static effect that makes you unable to discard cards or sacrifice permanents.
Still has an activation on the Nissa for the turn.
Yeah, can turn that into a 3/3, start pressuring the loyalty here. But this means Danny can actually still just minus the Tamio, get back D-Spark. But Roundtree going to follow that up with an Oath of Kaya to make that much of an impossibility.
So attack plus Oath puts Tamio down to 2. Roundtree gains 3 life up to 7. All right, Jessup's turn. We know he's got that Hydroid Krasis hanging out in the hand. That's been there for some time.
Yeah, and he also found the Vraska Golgari Queen on the previous turn as well.
Really shy on mana in the sense that he certainly couldn't cast both of those spells meaningfully in the same turn. He has to do something about the Narset before he can convert the Krasis. Vraska can do that, but it's really slow to do so.
Right, and that's probably going to mean both of his Planeswalkers are going to die in the process to these lands that Nissa Shakes the World keeps turning into 3/3 creatures.
Back against the wall. A win in this game will put Roundtree onto the finals.
Yeah, and a win for Danny means he's still got an uphill battle with 2 more games to go after that. He's in the 2-0 hole, and he's facing down a tough one now. Let's see if this Tamio Collector of Tales can find a Command the Dreadhorde of his own.
Plus is the Tamio. It's up to 3.
He's taking on what to name. He might want to name the Elder Spell. He's got 1 in the graveyard already, though, so it's going to be a tough one to hit.
And from 2 loyalty, he couldn't just use the Tamio to grab that one.
Yeah, Roundtree doing a fantastic job of minimizing the loyalty on that Tamio.
Roundtree definitely been an impressive player to watch. Very fast pace of play, very good tactics. We see Jessup looking at 4 cards, looking for Command the Dreadhorde. He finds it.
Yeah, and he can get back a number of creatures, Jadelight Rangers and such. There is no Wildgrowth Walker in the graveyard, so he won't be able to recoup that life. But this could just be one big turn for Jessup, and that's what he needs to get back in this game. There's a Teferi Hero of Dominaria on the other side of the battlefield, and a number of Jadelight Rangers he can bring back to start putting pressure on his opponent's Planeswalkers.
Yeah, a permanent was flipped over by the Tamio there as well. There's a Merfolk Branchwalker at the top of the graveyard. Right now looking at 3 Jadelight Rangers as a starting point.
Now my gut says you want to get back as many creatures as possible, but the problem is that I believe Roundtree can just minus the Tamio, get back Kaya's Wrath, and then cast that to clear the creatures off.
Right, so the find is 3 Jadelight Rangers and Teferi Hero of Dominaria. That's 14 life, just up to 6.
Yeah, and I like this line. I'm assuming Danny is actually going to minus the Teferi Hero of Dominaria on the Tamio. That'll not only put it back into his deck, but it'll keep Roundtree from being able to minus and get back that Kaya's Wrath from the graveyard.
Just up looking at kind of an Explore 6. So first he put a Hydroid Krasis in the graveyard, drew an Overgrown Tomb. Now we're looking at the second of 3 Jadelight Rangers. Nissa Who Shakes the World is the first look. He'll put that in the graveyard.
Yeah, I think at this juncture, you know, there aren't a whole lot of one-of cards you really want. I'm trying to figure out, it feels like just more Tamios, more Elder Spells, things like that are huge, that swing the game in your favor, but not in a way that draws cards. Like Hydroid Krasis, I think, pretty easily goes to the bottom. Nissa Who Shakes the World doesn't seem like it has as much of an impact as it needs to.
Well, if he's looking for something huge, an Assassin Trophy must be huge, as he's going to keep that one on top 3 times.
I mean, it does protect him from, you know, an opposing Planeswalker if he's able to untap next turn. But it also means that his Jadelight Rangers all have at least 3 power, which can trade off with the lands from Roundtree and the Nissa Who Shakes the World.
So Teferi will put that Tamio back in his deck, and he'll pass to Roundtree.
See if Roundtree can minus this Narset and find a Kaya's Wrath and close this game out. He's so close.
4 looks from Narset. I see it's a very Time Raveler. I believe a D-Spark has options.
D-Spark's not too bad. You want to keep that Tamio off the battlefield for as long as possible. He made that clear in his interview with Matthias Hunt. Tamio is one of the more important cards in the matchup. D-Spark also can put up to 6 more loyalty if he so chooses, but probably 4 more loyalty on the Narset, so it can keep churning out activations. But there is merit to Time Raveler just bouncing one of the opposing J-Light Rangers, because you can then, plus the Nissa, attack for effectively 6 and force a couple of trades from Jessup.
As you mentioned, the ideal find, probably Kaya's Wrath. He would have certainly taken that by now if it was there. It's like the Elder Spell was found.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pickup from Roundtree. He's going to be able to clear off this Hero of Dominaria and the Tamio Collector of Tales. 2 Planeswalkers for 2 mana snagged. It's a pretty good rate.
Players who enrolled in today's 3:30 Seal Spectacular, please make
Plays the Swamp from hand so he doesn't have to tap that Godless Shrine that he untapped last turn.
All right, there's the Elder Spell, clears the Planeswalkers, puts his Narset up to 5.
He's going to tick up this Nisu Shakes the World as well. And he's going to probably swing in for 6. I think he's fine trading here, but he might also just want to cast a discard spell and Thought Erasure, which he does.
Yeah, he was both making the Swamp a creature and also just untapping black mana here. See those 2 cards he knew about, Hydroid Krasis and the Vraska Golgari Queen, as well as a Breeding Pool.
Tough decision here because there's a chance that this Narset dies, and then that Hydroid Krasis could potentially be a lot of cards. But the Vraska Golgari Queen can also come down and minus on the Narset as well.
So Hydroid Krasis was hit. And Roundtree passes back. So he had to tap one of his blockers. So right now he has Godless Shrine as a 3/3 untapped. Jessup with 2 4-power Rangers and a 3-power one. Draws Assassin's Trophy.
I mean, I think that does it, right? Trophy on the Godless Shrine, attack for lethal. I feel like that has to be the play here.
Yeah, life total is very low. Both players have commanded the Dread Horde.
I mean, I think that Jessup just has to go for the Gusto, because if Roundtree has anything at all, I think he's going to lose the game. You have to bank on your opponent just having nothing here, I think. The problem is if you Assassin's Trophy and he has a removal spell in response, you're kind of wasting an Assassin's Trophy on a 3/3. That's not really where you want to be in this matchup.
Jessup reading Oath of Kaya. Checking all the boxes. He needs to win this game and the next 2.
Yeah, but if you're going to start anywhere, it might as well be right now, right here.
Right, there's Assassin's Trophy on the blocker.
And I don't even think Roundtree has another basic left in his deck. If I'm not mistaken, it's just the 1 Swamp and the 1 Plains. Fairly common for these Esper Superhero builds. And Danny has to know the deck list. There's not a whole lot that Roundtree can have here.
All right, Dan Jessup.
Wow.
Tag with everything, and he's on the board.
Roundtree here, a little shy on black mana, had to tap that Swamp in order to cast the Thought Erasure. Ultimately ended up costing him. What a game.
He does get to be on the play here, though. But, yeah, won both of the pre-sideboard games, lost the first sideboarded one. Fierce competition on the other side of the table, though. Danny Jessup playing in his 4th Invitational top 8. In 2018 season, he played 9 opens, 3 top 8s. Pretty good conversion there.
Yeah, 3 of 9 is definitely a good conversion rate. No wins last year, but overall Does have one open win as well as 16 total top 8s across the SCG Tour's history. A decorated player on the tour, former member of Team Metagame Gurus, one of the premier teams vying for spots at the Players' Championship back in 2015-2016 alongside Jim Davis and a number of other casts and characters, including the daddy, Kevin Jones. But most notably, Danny Jessup is Andrew Jessup's brother. Andrew Jessup, one of the more respected and feared players here on the SCG Tour.
Most notably, he has a brother.
Yeah. I mean, what do Jim McGuire, what's his brother's Mark McGuire, right? Like, that's, come on. Now, Danny's a phenomenal player in his own right. He's been playing on the tour for as long as I can remember. And definitely one of the players that you do not want to play against because he is, if anything, he is consistent.
He'll always have a good deck because it will either be one of the stock best decks in Modern or his brother's list.
Look, we give Danny a bit of guff from time to time, but of all the players on the SCG Tour, he is most likely to be right about deck choice. Like he never outthinks the metagame or whatever. Like I trick myself sometimes into thinking a deck is good or maybe the deck that I really like is bad, so I try to get off it and play something else. And Danny almost always figures out the best deck or the best two decks, and he gets paid off in these multi-format tournaments because he has two decks on top of the metagame instead of just one, and he needs to fade a bunch of decks in two formats instead of one.
Yeah, you do see that as a common point of reflection for a lot of players about their tournament. Things maybe went better if I play this deck instead of this deck. That's not the story for Danny Jessup. Like, what are you playing? Teamer Energy.
Yeah.
What are you playing? Bant Spirits.
Yeah. Etherworks,
Collected
Marvel.
Company.
Yeah.
Also, you don't generally regret your deck choices when you top 8 so many invitationals.
Yeah. Dan just putting up a really great performance here. I believe he was also in the top 8 last time as well, along with his brother, but ultimately Andrew took it down, and Danny's looking to one-up his brother here.
The Jessupinator. He's back.
Is that his Twitter handle?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Players looking at opening 7s. Roundtree's on the play for this game. He keeps 7. Jessup is on a mulligan.
Yeah, mediocre looking one there for Jessup. Decides to toss it back. This deck can afford to mulligan quite a bit. We've seen time and time again, goes down to 6 cards, 5 cards, but all it takes is a timely Jade Light Ranger hitting a couple lands, and that mulligan is undone. Plus, the games go long enough where you can kind of mitigate that raw card advantage at the beginning because later on, a lot of your cards generate 5, 6, 7, 10 for ones even. Just exponential for one in a Command the Dreadhorde sometimes.
Not a bad one.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Thank you so much, everybody at home, for joining us here on our Twitch page, twitch.tv/SCG Tour. And we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. For our open weekends, you get your vote as a subscriber to decide the quarterfinal match that we will cover. So watch the magic that you want to watch as that happens. You get custom emoticons and badge. Includes the Roll Todd emoticon.
Hell yeah.
A fan favorite and a Todd favorite.
Yeah, I mean, the second one's the one that matters the most, the Todd favorite.
Without the fans, there is no Todd Anderson.
I mean, that's not true. I think I do exist, but I am not the Todd Anderson.
Exactly.
I'm just...
You would just be another Todd Anderson.
And, if my Google searches are right, there are plenty of Todd Andersons.
It's my understanding.
Yeah.
Very common last name.
One guy is a referee. I don't know if it's college basketball or NBA. There's a golfer. I think there's an MMA referee. A couple of referees, which is kind of weird.
That is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But subscription, it's $4.99 a month. We would really appreciate your $5. All right, looks like Jessup has kept on 6. Watery Grave is where both players will start. Turn 2 for Roundtree, Glacial Fortress. No hero to start things off.
Merfolk Branchwalker hitting a land. That undoes the mulligan. And with Danny on the draw, too, he's back at card parity here with Roundtree.
Turns 3 play for Roundtree. Narset Parter of Veils. He'll put that to 3, which he safely can do because the Branchwalker found a land, and picks up Oath of Kaya.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as effective when your opponent's able to chip away at the loyalty. Now, sending it down to 1 loyalty, yeah, the static effect does affect something like Hydroid Krasis later on, maybe even the Golgari Queen Vraska tick up. But overall, you know, the strength of the collector Narset part of Vels in this matchup is the minus effect.
Turn 3 for Jessup. It's a Jadelight Ranger, keeps a Tameo on top. Kaya's
Kablooey.
Wrath cleans up those creatures, though.
Kablamo!
Presumably, Jessup's got to land. Yeah, you see some at the front of the hand. Likely to see that Tameo come down this turn.
I would actually really like it if Danny just played Tameo and minused, but that does leave him vulnerable to the Oath of Kaya. I just think he needs to apply a little more pressure here. A plus maybe digs for something like Command the Dreadhorde, but he's actually on the draw and on pace to get beat by Collin Roundtree's Dreadhorde first.
All right, here's Tameo. It goes up to 6, looking for Nissa, who shakes the world, puts 3 lands, and another Tameo into the graveyard. Things going back Roundtree's way. Here's the Elder Spell. Tameo down. Narset up to 3, back down to 1.
Yeah, Elder Spell quite good with all these Planeswalkers, but namely really spectacular with the Narset part of Vels because it does give you that extra look to the top 4.
He's going to give this one a think. Takes a Thought Erasure.
Yeah, that's a good one because he can go ahead and fire that off this turn. He knows that Danny probably doesn't have a Nissu Shakes the World in hand, but he might have another Planeswalker that he's worried about. Now that he has the Tameo off the battlefield, he can go ahead and cast that Thought Erasure and get full value.
Right, he'll get a look at Jessup's hand. We see Assassin's Trophy, Hydroid Krasis, Vraska Golgari Queen, and a Watery Grave. What do you take?
I think it's contextual based on Roundtree's hand, which I haven't gotten a great look at because he keeps putting it upside down based on the cards that Danny knows from various discard effects or Narset pluses or what have you. Looks like he's going to take the Hydroid Krasis and then go ahead and fire off a Duress as well, shocking down to 18, taking the Vraska, and then leaving him with just an Assassin's Trophy and a land. He needs a top deck, something big here.
Didn't find anything too substantial, just Watery Grave go. Roundtree's turn is a Glacial Fortress. We're back to Jessup.
Yeah, both players kind of at parity here, though. Roundtree knows that Danny has an Assassin's Trophy. Maybe has something to play but doesn't want to expose it. Maybe just has a couple of removal spells.
Jessup's going to shock to 18 for
Here
Breeding
it is.
Pool.
This is something big.
6
there
mana.
it is.
Command the Dreadhorde.
This is what Danny needs. Started down 0-2 on the comeback train.
Vraska, Tameo, Jadelight Ranger, Merfolk Branchwalker.
That's 13 damage he's looking at taking here to get back 4 permanents. No reason to get back something like a Hydroid Krasis because it does die as a 0/0. But that Tameo can minus and get back Hydroid Krasis to threaten a big creature next turn. Vraska Golgari Queen can minus and destroy the Narset so that static effect is no longer in play. And you get a couple explorers off these creatures.
Just up to 5, he'll explore. Here's a Woodland Cemetery. Here's a Breeding Pool. One last explore. Another Breeding Pool.
So 3 lands, not exactly ideal. You kind of want your creatures to be a little bit bigger. But he does get those draws out of the way, so now he has a better chance of drawing into Gasoline. And Narset now can choose to minus on a number of things.
Roundtree puts 2 Oath of Kayas in his hand face up. Hey, by the way, you're at 5. You can activate your Planeswalkers as you want, but it doesn't matter. Collin Roundtree, 3-1 over Dan Jessup. The burn plan. Todd is sitting here, mouth agape. Cannot believe what he just saw.